om606 into a 2011 Sprinter. Donor engine came out of a 98 low mileage E300 TD. If you know about om606, that's why you're here, so I'll not bore you with the details of those, and there's not much point of taking a video of the engine coming out. As I say, if you're into this, you're probably at this stage now. Now I thought, from what I'd read on the Tinternet, that it would go straight into a Sprinter. But what I found is 2011 Sprinter is a bit different. From 06 to 09, the gearbox will go straight onto the 606. The clutch and flywheel will fit straight on. The engine mounts swap over, giving you more or less the right position. But after 09, they don't. It's a different gearbox, different pattern on the bell housing, so it doesn't fit. So instead of going down the route of making a plate to make it fit, I've just bought a second-hand gearbox out of a 646, and it bolts straight up, no problem at all. Same with the flywheel and the clutch, out of a 646 from 06 to 09, goes straight on. The only thing I had to do, the TDC sensor here, you just have to raise it by a couple of millimeters. You probably can't see it, but I put a little washer in there and that just gets it to clear, no problem. Everything's straightforward. Gearbox, engine mounts. Again, from a 646, bolt straight on. Put it in the right width, but you have to move it back about 70 millimeter, which means extending the mount plates that the engine sits on. I'll show you that in a bit later. I've got the engine out, sort of checked it over, it's fine, it's a low mileage engine. I ran the car for a couple of weeks before I took the engine out. All I've had to do is remove it from the car, take the auto box off. I've removed the automatic cooling pipes which ran along the side of the engine, taken the air conditioning compressor off because I'm not going to be running aircon on the van. So if you've got the right bits, it's fairly straightforward. One other thing, the 2011 with the later gearbox, also the output flange for the prop shaft is slightly bigger. So I thought I was going to have to get the front end of the prop off for a 646, but luckily the flange is exactly the same spline, thread and everything, so I've just swapped it over from the 2011 box to the 09 box, and that solves that problem. The prop shaft will have to be shortened by 70 mil because we're pushing the thing as far back as we can get it, just so we can run the original fans on the front of the engine and fit everything in. But I'll keep you up to speed. I mean, basically in my notes, we're going to do mechanical first. Done the output change, got the box, got the flywheel, got the clutch, got the mounts. That's all ready to go, so we can pretty much put it in the engine compartment. You use the original gearbox cross member. You bolt it up like a bolt pattern too far back. Again, I'll show you that when I actually get to doing that. Once all the mechanical's done, then we'll like fuel lines, power assisted steering lines, what else? Do the exhaust, shorten the prop. Just get all the mechanical stuff in and in the right place. Then we'll do the wiring. This is the all mechanical fuel pumps on the 606, But the later ones like this are, instead of just having a throttle lever, this one is electronically controlled. So a company in Iceland do a control unit called a DSL1. That's on its way. Apparently that'll run the engine standalone, but I want to integrate it into the van. Apparently this control unit, it's basically a mappable ECU, comes, you wire it to the engine, you can get the engine running, and it has CAN outputs, high and low, and apparently you can feed those to the van, which will run most of the dash without too much problem. But electrical, we'll get to that once all the mechanical's done. Once it's running, happy, it's a case of putting the front end back on, do all the plumbing, intercooler, rad pipes. So this engine has an oil cooler on it, so I'll plumb that back in. All sounds very easy, doesn't it? Ha ha ha. And the engine's in. Intercooler off the original van I've mounted lower, further back, just so I can fit the original car radiator in. So that's all in and happy. Just need to run the pipework up for that. I've used the car radiator, which I basically made brackets so it sits exactly right in relation to the engine. What else have we done? Started making the exhaust, if you can see that. Just need a flexi to join this piece here. Gearbox mount, again, just moved it back a couple of notches. The engine mounts, you can see there, I've made a plate just to move it back 70mm. Slightly higher on the passenger side. It's the right-hand drive vehicle, by the way. And there's the other one. You can see 5mm plate. I couldn't move it any further back because of the steering rack. And I presume that's the same on the other side on left-hand drive. But that all sits nicely. Loads of room around this to work, so it's all good. Moving further back, the prop shaft I found, obviously it pushed the prop back a bit. So, as you can see, I've made a plate to hold it further back, not much further back. And rather than getting the prop shortened in here, basically this slip joint, the plunge was going in too far, so it wouldn't flex properly. So I took an inch off the front end of the splined part so it could go in further, and it actually sits okay. So that saved a bit of work. I'll put a couple of pictures up in a second for that. The gear cables, again, later van, a newer van, later gearbox and all that. The original cables from the van were too long, so I took a chance on buying earlier cables, so like 15 quid second hand, and they clip straight in. Inside the van, outside the van, everything works. Had to take half the dash out to get them to clip in, but now I'm happy with that because that all works well. Again, 06 to 09, gear parts, everything seems to fit straight in, which is great. Prop shaft bolted straight up after I changed that flange. The oil cooler, you can see the oil cooler pipes there. I just basically wangled the original cooler to fit in here. Need to make a couple of brackets for the outside, but it's solid. I'm happy with that. Power steering lines, just unhooked them further down and remounted them just to give them that extra little bit of length. Engine's tilted up slightly at the front, but again, I'm not too worried with that because the prop lines up, everything lines up. Also, the air conditioning pump, when I took it off, I thought I was going to have to get a shorter belt. But lo and behold, on the 2.1 engine that came out, there's like a dummy pulley that replaces it, and it bolted straight on. Good old Mercedes. So that saved me having to measure and buy another belt. Radiator hoses, because I'm using the car radiator that matches the engine, they're perfect, exactly in the right place, exactly where they need to be. Again, there's the front pipe I'm making. So mechanically I'm 99% there. Happy days. On to the dreaded wiring. Haha. This is the control unit I was on about, from Iceland. Baldur's Control Systems, the chap who supplied it, and he's actually really good. It turned up, sent him an email asking a few questions specifically to this van, sent him a couple of copies of wiring diagrams, and he came straight back to me saying, yeah, this wire goes there, that goes there, so we'll be able to run the dash off the thing, no problem. I've stripped the loom off the engine that came out, the 2.1. Don't really need to do this, but I'm just going to integrate a few bits of it, just for the sake of neatness. Oil pressure, oil level, alternator wire, glow plugs, map sensor, boost control, starters in the loom on the engine, but I'll integrate it again just to try and keep the whole thing tidy and OEM looking. ECU to run it. I've got the DSL1 from Iceland. It's in this plastic bag just to keep it waterproof for now. I'll end up putting it inside, no doubt. If you've got a basic knowledge of wiring, the instructions are there. Had the engine running in no time. A couple of emails back and forward to the manufacturer to get settings for this flywheel and that sort of thing, but no great dramas. It's in, it's running. Just need to figure out how to get it to run the dash. That's a bit more complex because these are all CAN bus system, but DSL1 has got a CAN bus output. It's just next level from what I can handle, so I'll probably get a friend to look at that, see if we can get the rest of the dash working. I mean, the rev counter works, fuel gauge works, speedo works fine, and the OD socket for ODB socket works fine. You can plug a little gauge into it, it pulls up everything you need, turbo pressure, water temperature, all that. The only thing I'm missing is an oil pressure light, so I'll just put a basic dummy one in, and same for the glow plug light as well. But yeah, straightforward. Doing a few upgrades, turbo and fuel pump, but that's for another video. Thanks for watching. Running. Ooh.